Namaste. Welcome to the Shri Ishopanishad class. My name is Janapati Das, and please accept my respects. Thank you for tuning in to my channel to listen to these videos, and I'd like to offer my respectful obeisances unto Jagadguru Siddheswara Bhananda Paramahamsa Shri Prabhupada. We will be reading from his purport today as the second half of the Mantra 13 part of the Shri Ishopanishad of the first half video I made, last one I've uploaded. And I'd like to also offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We read his purport last week. And please join along. We are going to chant some. Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Norakaruna Svarupaya Radha Krishna Kristaya Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaurakaruna Svarupaya Radha Krishna Kristaya Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I was born in the darkness, ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So we're going to read the second purport from Mantra 13. We won't read through all the verses. We'll just read Mantra 13. And this is from Jagaguru Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada. Mantra 13, it is said that one result is obtained by worshiping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshiping that which is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. Purport. Everyone worships something. It's a great way to start a sentence. Everyone worships something. Doesn't matter whether you're religious or you're atheist. Everyone worships something. Someone has a different God. And it's said the meaning, and this is something that religious people oftentimes will get mistaken when they says, when Moses in the Ten Commandments said that you should not have any idols or any gods before you. Really what it means is that any forms are items that are not God. So there are a lot of idols, statues of made up gods and money, sex. You know, our gods come in different forms. We worship different things. If you don't worship God, oftentimes you'll worship other things that you seek your pleasure and your happiness from. And so Christians often will see the fact that when we have the Arka Vigraha, the form of the deity on the altar, they think, oh, that's an idol. Or Muslims, they would smash images of, Jesus and whatever, other gods, because they say God is not it's not limited to this statue or whatever. This is not God. But this is a definition of really what this means, is that the Krishna is Krishna. God is God. But people will worship, if they don't worship God, oftentimes they'll worship other things. So everyone worships something. The hedonist worships the senses and the objects of sense enjoyment. For example, the sense organs of the opposite sex, or even in the case of homosexual, the same sex. The hedonist also worships food and the tongue that tastes the food. Money also is worshipped because it facilitates sense gratification. And what is the result of worshiping sense enjoyment, the senses and the objects of sense pleasure? Frustration, confusion, anger, hatred, emptiness, fear, and finally rebirth again into the material world. In other words, the person who worships matter, who is attached to enjoying the material senses, ends up after the death of his present body taking on yet another material body. This is called reincarnation, or transmigration of the spirit soul. So reincarnation is not causeless, and we've been reading about karma yoga, and karma, and the karmic reactions in the Bhagavad Gita. And that's a whole subject in itself. It is the result of a particular type of worship. The mind of a person who worships the objects of the senses is always immersed in thoughts of such sense objects. So being immersed in a material item brings us back into the material world. That's just natural. That's why Krishna says whatever consciousness a person is in of the time of their death, what they're thinking of, they will go to that. So Krishna consciousness is immersion in Krishna. And so because we're immersed, our mind, our body, our life, our activities, everything in Krishna consciousness, we go to Krishna by nature. Because That's what is the sense of our worship. Indeed, such immersion is the essential definition of worship, that which one always thinks about and wants to have. If a person worships the senses and sense objects throughout his life, then at the time of death his mind will automatically be immersed in such thoughts. This is why the person would be forced to take on another material body. As the Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, verse 6. So, it's a very scientific purpose. We know that the living entity is encased in both gross and subtle and material energy. So what we engage our subtle mind, which is a subtle energy, if that is telling us we want to engage our gross physical body in sense enjoyment, therefore we are shaping the mind into a subtle shape of sense desire. We are actually forming the body that this subtle body will form in the next life. So, the Srimad Bhagavatam states the subject matter which attracts the dying man is the beginning of his next life. The relationship between the spirit, soul, the person, the mind, and the gross physical body is as follows. The spirit, soul, or self can be compared to the naked man. The mind can be compared to his underclothes. And the gross body, made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, can be compared to his outer garments. At death, the gross body, the outer garment, is removed, but the mind, the undergarment, is not removed. So at the time of death, the self leaves the gross physical body behind, but is still covered by the subtle body, the mind. This is described by the great sage Narada Muni in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The great sage Narada stated, the living entity acts in a gross body in this life. This body is forced to act by the subtle body composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego. After the gross body is lost to the subtle body, the mind is still there to enjoy or suffer. Thus there is no change. 4th Canto, 29th chapter, 60th verse. So, that's why I stated that very drastic deaths, whether they be suicide, drug overdose, the subtle body is still there. Oftentimes, like for example, for suicide, people think, well, I just want to end my life because my enjoyment in this world is just not good, and so therefore I just want to end it all. But the problem is that it's not ended. The subtle body in the form of a ghost is still present and will have to live out its existence in the material world for however long that gross body was supposed to stay. Just because the gross body is lost, the subtle body is still there, is still present, and once it is left the gross body, it will eventually take on another gross body unless it is immersed in Krishna. Krishna and the spiritual is the source of all spiritual energy. Therefore, if we are immersed, we are connecting because we are part of that spiritual energy. And the Srimad Bhagavatam further states the caterpillar transports itself from one leaf to another by capturing one leaf before giving up the other. So this is a perfect analogy, like the caterpillar going across a leaf. It's like from body to body. Similarly, according to her previous work, the living entity must capture another body before giving up the one she has. This is because the mind is a reservoir of all kinds of material desires. 4th Canto, 29th chapter, 76 to 77th verse. Throughout life, the hedonist worships the objects of the senses and sense enjoyment, and thus cultivates a particular mentality. Then after he leaves the gross physical body, the particular mentality he cultivated remains as a covering and acts as a type of nucleus around which gross a new gross material body develops. In other words, the type of gross material body that a person takes on in the next life is determined by the shape, quote, or nature of the subtle material body, the mind. This is confirmed in both the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. The mind is the cause of the living entities attaining a certain type of body in accordance with this association with material nature. According to one's mental composition, one can understand what the living entity was in his past life, as well as what kind of body he will have in the future. Thus, the mind indicates the past and future bodies. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 29th chapter, 66th verse. By virtue of the process of the subtle body, the living entity develops and gives up gross bodies. This is known as transmigration of the self. Thus, the self becomes subjected to different types of so-called enjoyment, and it's so-called enjoyment, lamentation, fear, happiness, and unhappiness. So, what's the reason why it's saying so-called is because the spirit soul is eternal, full of bliss, full of knowledge, happy and eternal, right? It's not actually subjected to material enjoyment, lamentation, fear, happiness, or unhappiness from a material point of view, because it's spiritual, and therefore it's untouched. As the lotus flower comes out of the water and is untouched by the water. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 29th verse, 75. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, attains a certain type of ear, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind, and that's not necessarily a human form either. In most cases it's not. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Depending on what you're engaging your body in this life, in your mind in this life, this is determining through the karmic reactions what you will be in your next life. That was from Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, verses 8 to 9. According to scripture and the great spiritual masters, a person's transmigration from one body to the next is a result of his worshiping that which is not supreme. So, thus the statement of Srila Prabhupada, who says in the beginning everyone worships something. And most importantly, what is obtained by worshiping Krishna is different than what's obtained from worshiping matter. Excuse me. Some so-called spiritual masters teach that worshiping demigods will produce the same results as worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And according to scripture and the great spiritual masters, a person's transmigration from one body to another is a result of his worshiping that which is not supreme. Some so-called spiritual masters teach that worshiping demigods will produce the same results as will worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. But this conclusion is based on ignorance. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord states that people worship demigods because they are contaminated by material desires. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Chapter 7, verse 20. So this is seen not only in Hinduism, but also in things like Catholicism, where you have all these pantheon of saints and different people where, you're going to worship the saint, pray to the saint to get some kind of obtaining some kind of goal. Please heal my sick mother, or please help me. There was a famous saint, because I was raised Catholic, so there was Saint Anthony, and my mother used to always say, pray to Saint Anthony to find your lost whatever, because he was the saint, patron saint of finding things. He was very good at finding things, apparently. And, if that really mean anything. There are transcendentalists who worship the impersonal feature of the absolute truth of Brahman effulgence with the hope that one day they can merge into it, and lose their individual personal identity. Many people throughout the world, including some Buddhists, Taoists, Hindus, Muslims, yogis, and practitioners of Qigong, see the merging into this ocean of white light as the ultimate goal. Sometimes such a person gets a glimpse of this Brahman effulgence, the ocean of light that emanates from the Supreme Person, and thus becomes even more motivated to continue his practice, spurred by the increased hope that one day he will be able to completely merge into the light. If worship of the Brahman effulgence is successful, it leads to a temporary merging into the Brahman at the time of death. However, this merging is not eternal, although the spirit soul is unaware of his actual identity as an individual while in that condition. In fact, he is still an individual. And every individual spirit soul by nature is eternally active and needs to love and be loved. In the merged condition, the spirit souls need to be active, and to love and be loved is not taken care of. They are therefore ultimately the spirit souls again forced to descend into the world of matter, the world of birth, diseases, old age, and death. Yeah, because if you're merged into the oneness, you have no relationship. There's no relationship. You are just this great ocean of light. You know, you feel this oneness and lack of individualism. But the individual Atma exists, and it has an eternal relationship that can only be completely fulfilled by the Supreme Soul, the spirits, the Paramatma, the Shri Krishna. You can only have that relationship. And so therefore this desire to be loved and be loved, which is inherent in the living entity, which is why we are continuously worshiping different things in the forms of, you know, partners, you know, money, wealth, but we really just want to be loved. We want to love and be loved. And the problem is when you put all that on your partner as being like you're trying to, there's only one person who can satisfy your complete desire to be love and love, and that is Krishna. And this is why Lord Jesus Christ, when he gave his commandment, his first commandment was to love the Lord with your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole being, and like unto it, love your neighbor as yourself. You don't love your neighbor first and then love God second. It just doesn't work that way, because people with a misconception of not understanding that the individual is a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, you think that person is a body of that person that I'm married to, right? And you're like, oh, you don't, you never spend time with me. You never, you just like don't sleep with me enough. And you it's just, it becomes everything. It's like, you don't do this perfectly. And it's like, and then the other person's saying, oh, but you're not as beautiful as you used to be. I'm not as attracted to you anymore. So it's like, it always, so, and even you could be in a relationship that's really, really great. You're kind to each other, you love each other, that everything's pretty good. And then it's like, but, there's always going to be the standard that you put on it's really not really that fair. I mean, you should understand that your partner is not God. Your partner is not God. Not Krishna. Never be Krishna. But you can love them in relationship to loving God first. And that's the main point. And every individual spirit soul by nature is eternally active and needs to love and be loved. Okay, so we're reading that. And in this material world, which is completely alien to his actual eternal spiritual essence, he engages in various activities, creating good karma and bad karma, and places his precious love upon one temporary form after another. So, whether it's this partner, that partner, your children, your dog, your cat, you just try to, where am I going to get my love from? People are so lonely, and they just never, they get so frustrated because they don't find a partner, or they get a partner and the partner is not perfect. It's Krishna. Krishna is the partner that you really need. This 13th mantra of the Shri Ishopanishad confirms that a person's future is in his own hands. The individual spirit soul is responsible for his own future. It is not that God arbitrarily decides that this person is to be reborn in a dog body, this person is to go to the demigods, and this person gets to come up to my abode, my kingdom. No, the Supreme Lord wants all his children to come back to him, to love him, and to be happy, but we are endowed with free will. We are endowed with free will. This is the main argument to say, why is it God have, whatever bad things happen to good people? Why did that child get cancer? Why are those children getting bombed? And why did my mother have to die of cancer? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Because we're all individuals and we've all acted in our existence in the material world, and we've done bad things. We've done things that have created karmic reaction because we have chosen to try to be the lords and masters. And these things, they have to have a reaction. You have to, it's like, when you're raising children, you want to give your children a certain amount of free will to do things as they get older and older and older, but they have to ultimately learn the responsibility of the choices that they make. We just say, do whatever you want to do, or, we get to a point where we're just like, you can't do anything that I tell you not. And those people are abusive. When the parents get, they're like adult children and they're trying to tell them they can't do anything, you don't teach them how to be responsible. So the living entity is responsible. It's about responsibility. If a person chooses to do something with the knowledge that it will come back to me, then that's up to them, but it will come back to them. And if it does, they have to accept the fact that this is Krishna's mercy. To teach people, you are not God. This is not your home. Your home is in. So there is no forcing, but the natures of the laws of material nature are reign superior in the material world. We cannot escape it. We can choose to worship him, the Supreme, which is our happiest state, really, or to worship something that is not the Supreme. We can choose to serve him or to serve something else. We are responsible for our future because our future is the result of our present activities. So we can decide, do we want to go back to Krishna? We have the choice to say, yes, I want to go back to Krishna. I want to go back to where I was happy. And do I want to live continuously in this material world of birth, death, disease, old age, and okay, if we want to do that, then we can see into the future. We can predict into the future by how we are acting today. As the 13th mantra of the Shri Ishopanishad states, if we worship the supreme cause of all causes, then we will have a certain type of future. If we worship something other than the supreme cause of all causes, then our destiny will be something else. So this is pretty straightforward because it's like the outcome of doing things. If you do drugs, if you shoot heroin, it's like there's going to be a result of doing that over and over and over again. You're going to get addicted. It's going to start to destroy your body. You're going to, all the things that go along with that. If you decide I'm going to put $10 in my bank account, it's like every day, by the end of the year, you'll have a certain amount of money by what you've done today. So it's pretty common sense, So the choice is ours. We do have a degree of freedom by which to determine our own future. Each individual's destiny is really in his own hands. Each individual's destiny is really in his own hands. So we have very little to control over how the material world turns out while we're in it. But our destiny is in our hands, really. We're either doing one thing or the other. We're either laying the ground to go back to Krishna or laying the ground to continue to be in the material world. There's really nothing else in between. Indeed, in the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord states that he actually knows the desires of every living being and that he gives them a particular future according to their desires. If a person has desires in his mind at the time of death, if his mind is molded in a certain way, that's really interesting, molded, yeah, because it's literally a type of molding from the subtle energy in your body. We can, and this is why, how we can shape the thoughts that we have. The thoughts that we have often do shape our future. If his mind is molded in a certain way, then God, through material nature, provides him with a particular type of body so that he can enjoy just as his heart desires. For example, if he wants to enjoy like an animal, then he gets an animal body. So God actually gives us our desires. The 8th mantra of the Shri Ishopanishad states, the Supreme Lord has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord declares that he is not envious of or angry at those who worship the demigods instead of him. God doesn't get mad about whether we're worshiping him or not. It's actually sad. He's sad because he would love for us to come back to him. He loves us. Indeed, he states, I am in everyone's heart and is a super soul. And as soon as one desires to worship the demigods, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to some particular deity. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 21. So if you want to worship a particular demigod, then the Supreme Lord knows this and actually helps you direct your concentration upon that particular demigod. This is a very important point. The Supreme Lord gives you what you desire. If you don't want to worship him, he won't force you. So, unlike what the fundamentalists and crazy terrorist Islamists or born-again Christian firebranding people who, or whatever they might be, any religion, any person, if you don't want to, if you don't worship God, then God will, punish you. And it's like, no, God doesn't force you, or he will force you, or we need to force you. You have to convert to our religion, or we will cut your head off. It's crazy. God doesn't expect that. In this connection, because God really, Krishna loves. Look at beautiful Krishna. Krishna's so beautiful. He's so kind, so loving. He just wants us to come home to him. He's not going to force us to he loves us. When you love somebody, you don't force them to do that. It's like saying, you have to marry me or I'll kill you. No, you get married through love. And that's a free will, the free will. I love you, Krishna. I want to come back to you. Krishna, you are mine, I am yours. You are my heart, I am your heart. I can think of nobody but you all the time. Please take me home. That's love for Krishna. In this connection, we should mention something about fanaticism. See, I'm Shri Prabhupada is already going to talk about these things. A religious fanatic tries to force other people to worship God in the same way that he worships God. But in fact, God does not force anyone to worship him. Shri Prabhupada has talked about this many times. He says that people who are, they're afraid, they have a fear that somehow these people, what they want, people will not accept. And they can't accept that. But in fact, God does not force anybody to worship him. All fanatics should try to understand this point. Surely if they appreciate that God is all-powerful, then they should also be able to appreciate that he has the power to force everyone to worship him. However, he does not do that. And since God does not force living beings to worship him, since God does not force his children to pay homage to him, since God does not force his children to remain in his kingdom, but in fact creates a material world for those of his children who don't want to serve him, all of us, And then why should someone who is supposedly a servant of God use force? The truth is that the fanatic does not know that real worship of God means love for God. The truth is that the fanatic does not know that real worship of God means love for God. And that no one can be forced to love God. Just like you can't force somebody to love you that you love. Someone can be forced to say he loves God, but not actually love him. That's true about the person too. You could say, okay, you got to say you're going to love me or I'm going to kill you. And, oh yeah, I love you. But they're not really feeling love in their heart for this person. They are being fear. They're being intimidated into fear that if they don't say they're going to love this person, then they're going to get shot. That's not love. Hello. The truth is that fanatic does not know the real worship of God. Worship of God means love for God, and that no one can be forced to love God. Someone can be forced to say he loves God, but not actually love him. Fortunately, the fanatic does not understand this difference. Equally unfortunate in the part of as a reaction to fanaticism, many so-called spiritual masters have popularized the slogan, all paths lead to the same place. Yeah, this was, my godbrother was talking about this. It was Ramakrishna Das in the 18th century famously coined this saying in a conference just to be spiritually lazy. This liberal philosophy may be attractive to people who are too lazy to study and to attempt discrimination between one path and another. This philosophy may be attractive to those who don't want to make the effort to decide which path in life they will follow. And it's funny because people who say all paths lead to the same place are the same people who don't follow any path. They're just lazy. They're like, oh yeah, that all leads to the same place, and let's just hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But all paths don't lead to the same place, as we can say in a very common, logical conclusion that if you took a path, one path may lead off a cliff, another path may actually lead to the actual destination, another path may go to another designation, but they don't all go to the same place. So it's completely nonsense. That's what it says here. All paths lead to the same place is complete nonsense. This philosophy may be attractive to those who don't want to make the effort to decide which path in life they will follow, but this philosophy is not at all attractive to those who really want to know the truth. It's not. It's lazy. There's nothing wrong with inquiring and studying other religions. There's nothing wrong with that because actually a lot of religions have a very similar conclusion, but they are so a lot of them are created for people in particular consciousness at a certain time. So they're kind of like the beginning algebra or like sometimes like basic arithmetic. The people in the consciousness, whether they be like the people in the Hebrews during Moses, had no no structure of religious thought. They were they were living under the rule of Egyptians who were complete pagans, and so God gave Moses to give them very specific rules and regulations that would help elevate their consciousness, and you can see that in the Bible. Numbers or one of those books, and it's just like very specific, like the way you wear your robe, who can approach the temple, what kind of animal is slaughtered, how it's slaughtered. It's like very particular rules and regulations. The people of Arabia were given another form of thing by Muhammad, but a lot of that is the idea of bhakti yoga or love for God is eclipsed because people were not consciously even in that place yet. They were having to be told, not to sleep with their sisters and sleep with their farm animals and eat humans or whatever, just crazy. So these paths are only go to a certain destination. They don't maybe go all the way. This philosophy may be attracted to... Okay, so I read that. A person doesn't need to be a great scholar to understand that different paths lead to different places. If you go to a train station, you can't just get on any train and expect to get to your desired designation. Each train goes to a different place. You can get on a train to Los Angeles and you can't get on a train to Los Angeles and expect to arrive in New York. They're completely opposite directions. The only way you're going to get to New York from LA is if you're taking the train to LA is to say, wait, I need to get on this other path that goes back, at least goes back in the direction of New York. Even if I have to take a couple paths to get back to New York, or a direct flight, which is Bhakti Yoga, to New York, then I'll be heading at least in the right direction. But this other way was taking me completely in the wrong direction. It is true that certain trains may go in the same general directions. For example, they may all head south, but one train may go only to the first city. So this is a perfect analogy of what I was just explaining about religions that were designated for people in particular consciousness, to help elevate their consciousness so that they could go on spiritually in their next life into higher form, at least to get out of a very materialistic consciousness is better than nothing. Another train may go all the way to the third city, but may stop there. And thus, even if a person worships the impersonal feature of the Lord, the Brahman effulgence, or practices a method for merging into the impersonal Brahman, he still falls short of the goal of reaching the supreme cause of all causes, the supreme personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clearly refutes the idea that all paths lead to the same place. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors, and those who worship me will live with me. Chapter 9, verse 25. So there are different kinds of religious processes and animistic. I've lived in places in the world, in Africa and whatnot, that I've seen these animistic, kind of like voodoo type of religions, and been invited to see them and partake in them. They're worshiping ghosts and spirits, pretty much straightforward. That's not the same direction as going from love for God. If a person worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he will go to him. That is the Lord's promise. As the Bhagavad Gita states, men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. So, this is what Krishna was kind of telling the residents of Vrindavan when they wanted to worship the demigod Indra, is that, really all things come from Krishna. And the demigods have a certain amount of authority because of Krishna. Those who worship the demigods go to the planet of the demigods, but my devotees reach my supreme abode. Chapter 7, verse 24. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Chapter 18, verse 65. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Chapter 8, verse 16. That these truths have been handed down by the great spiritual authorities is confirmed in this 13th mantra of Shri Ishopanishad. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. So great spiritual masters in our lineage, my dear Srila Prabhupada, of course, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and so on, all the way back to Krishna, have explained this exactly as it is here. The ascending method of gaining knowledge is of no value when it comes to absolute truth or God. The power of the senses and mind are limited. We receive it in a descending process. The material mind and senses cannot penetrate into the anti-material or spiritual dimension. Therefore, for information about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must link up with the bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession, or parampara. Parampara refers to an unbroken line of spiritual masters who have handed down the absolute truth. For example, I didn't manufacture the teaching being presented here. I received it from my spiritual master. That was Bhaktivedanta Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada. And where did he get it? From his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta. And his spiritual master got it from his guru, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, and so on. A bona fide disciplic succession begins with God himself. Our disciplic succession begins with Govinda, Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the importance of parampara, of handing down the absolute truth like a mango being handed down from teacher to student, is crucial. Because otherwise, you have no spiritual master, you have no way of really understanding the scriptures with your own mind and your own speculation. But unfortunately, so many so-called spiritual teachers, a lot of born-again Christians who go around and teach people about what Jesus was saying, they have anointed themselves as the spiritual master without receiving any instructions from spiritual master themselves. They say, well, Lord Jesus Christ, but Lord Jesus Christ is not a living spiritual master. He's gone. He's left the planet. So that just leaves people to speculate about what Jesus Christ was really saying in the Bible, or what the Bible says. And how many churches do you have? So many churches, so many people like starting new churches, and they're like, this is right, and that Christian church is not right, and no, it's the Catholic way, no, it's the Protestant way, no, it's, Jehovah's Witnesses, no, it's Mormons, no, it's, whatever it might be. People are always fighting because they're just speculating about it, and all their founders of their religions were speculators too. He spoke the absolute truth to Lord Brahma. Okay, our bona fide disciplic succession begins with God himself. Our disciplic succession begins with Govinda, Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He spoke the absolute truth to Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe. Lord Brahma handed it to his disciple Narada. Narada taught it to Srila Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva then put this transcendental information in a writing for the first time. These writings are called the Vedic literature, and the Shri Ishopanishad is an important part of this literature. So although the Vedas were written by Srila Vyasadeva some 5,000 years ago, in fact, they were handed down orally long before that. Our disciplic succession can be traced back to Srila Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, Lord Brahma, and Sri Krishna. More recently, in our line of disciplic succession 500 years ago, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in India. Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. This is confirmed in Scripture. Sometimes I personally appear on the surface of the world in the garb of a devotee. Specifically, I appear as the son of Sachi in Kali Yuga to start the Sankirtan chanting of the holy name movement, Brahma Yamala. I mean, you can't get more detailed than that. In the Kali Yuga, the Supreme Lord comes as one who always chants the holy name of Sri Krishna, who is Sri Krishna himself and whose complexion is yellow. Chaitanya Charitamrita, 1st Adi Lila, 3rd chapter, 52nd verse. I shall appear in the holy land of Navadvip as the son of Sachi Devi, Krishna Yamala. In the age of Kali, when the Sankirtan or chanting movement is inaugurated, I shall descend as the son of Sachi Devi, Vayu Purana. One who sees the golden-colored personality of Godhead, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Actor, who is the source of the Supreme Brahman, is liberated. Mundaka Upanishad. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya could have started a new disciplic succession, but he did not. Instead, he became the disciple of Shri Ishvara Puri, a bona fide spiritual master in the Brahma Sampradaya. Lord Chaitanya did this to serve as an example. So he was a Supreme Lord, but he came as a disciple. He came as a devotee of Krishna. If a person wants to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead perfectly, then he should approach a bona fide guru. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord says that not only should a seeker of truth approach a bona fide guru, he says that the seeker must do it. This is a long purport. Hopefully we get through this. This is also stated in the Mundaka Upanishad. In order to learn the transcendental science, one must approach the bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession who is fixed in the absolute truth. Mundaka Upanishad. I think that's first chapter, first book or something. I don't know. Second chapter, 12th verse. The 13th mantra of the Shri Ishopanishad refers to the great undisturbed authorities. A person who sees the truth, who knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is no longer disturbed by the whirlpool of material nature. To know the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, is to be liberated. In the material world, people are afraid of death. This is due to ignorance. A person who knows the truth, that his essence is spirit, that he is eternal, the eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit, and that the Lord will give him full protection, is undisturbed by fears of death. In the material world, people experience a variety of disturbances because they have placed their love and attachment onto the temporary names and forms of the world. A wise person places his love directly onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a person is not disturbed by the thorns of worldly love. Love that, thorns of world. That rose has got some thorns, let me tell you. In the material world, people are always disturbed by the demands of the senses and the mind. The senses are like wild horses that drag a person this way and that. But someone who tastes the nectar of pure love for God is satisfied within and thus can easily tame the mind and senses. Such a person is undisturbed by the demands of the senses. He is the master of the senses, not the slave. So the master of the senses is Goswami, right? Master of the senses, not Godas. Materialistic persons are always feeling empty inside because they don't really know the true purpose of their existence. A self-realized soul knows full well that the purpose of his existence eternally is to render loving service to the Supreme Lord. Such a wise person is not disturbed by feelings of meaninglessness and purposelessness. Only one who is himself undisturbed by the whirlpool of material nature can help others out of that whirlpool. A drowning man can't save another drowning man. Material existence is like a vast ocean filled with whirlpools, sharks, and big waves. The tiny spirit soul is struggling in this ocean of material existence, suffering from birth, diseases, old age, death, and so many other anxieties and troubles. Since the spirit soul is in essence spirit, he does not in fact belong in this material ocean. The material world is not his natural home. So now the question is how to get out. Some people try to climb out by the power of their own sense perception and mental speculation or mystic yoga. This is called the ascending process. But since they try to ascend out of the material field by their own, this is called the ascending process since they tried to ascend out of the material field by their own efforts. We have about four more pages or so of this purport. So I'm going to break up this video one more time into two parts of this purport here. This is really, really awesome, but I don't want to go too long on this video, so we'll just conclude next time. Thank you very much. Namaste.